So with FNCS right around the corner, I want to go over exactly some things that you guys should be focusing on in order to qualify for this duo's FNCS. I want you guys to at least make it to the semis, if not the finals, of 1 week. And ideally you guys can qualify for stuff like the Surge Week, or you can ideally make it to the finals, which that would be really good if any of you do. But I'm really excited to go over in this video a lot of the different details and the ways to play in this FNCS, and I'm hoping you guys will find this video extremely helpful. Now, starting off, I want to go over understanding the lobbies of this FNCS. Now, in current Fortnite competitive, the lobbies are going to be very, very specific to a specific rank. So as you guys know, to compete in this season's FNCS, you need to be Platinum 1 or higher to compete. Now, obviously, Platinum 1 is a rank that is not difficult to achieve by many standards. However, as I'm going to show in this rank distribution chart on screen, Platinum 1 is the second most populous rank right behind Gold 3. So because of the fact that Platinum 1 is almost one of the most populous ranks, a lot of the players that were able to compete in FNCS before are most likely going to be able to compete in it once again. I think this is going to be really good for the Fortnite competitive scene, considering that yes, it is still kind of an opens level tournament, so pretty much anybody with the basic level of skill caliber can compete. However, it's still going to make it more competitive because it's going to weed out a lot of the bad players who are pretty much bots in these lobbies. So all of the lobby fillers are pretty much going to be deleted from the games, and now it's pretty much everybody is going to be having a fair competitive chance to actually compete at a base level. So what I think this means is that naturally the base level of the competitiveness is going to increase. However, for a lot better players, it's still going to be pretty much easy for you guys to actually qualify through. There's never really going to be an awful player in these ranks. I mean, occasionally you might run across some player that's not having a very good day, who's playing bad, but overall what you need to understand about the lobbies is that they're going to be relatively competitive even in the opens levels. Now, this leads me into the idea of the round format. So as you guys know, with this FNCS, there's going to be opens, there's going to be semis, and there's going to be the finals of the weeks. Obviously, there's going to be 3 weeks for you guys to compete in. However, what I would recommend for you guys is you take this format and you try to actually adjust to each different game inside of each of these rounds. So for example, in the opens, your games should go like this. Your first game ideally should be a WKEY, which means that you try to get a lot of kills and try to place relatively highly. You're kind of focusing more on getting off to a big start here. You want to be at a head start in front of all the different people that you're competing against in the open round. Then after this WKEY game, you can play passive for the next 4 games, and then during game 6, you can have another WKEY game. And then for games 7, 8, 9, and 10, so the final 4 games, you can have a final 4 passive games. And ideally, your final game should be finishing right after the tournament is ended, around 20 minutes after the hour. This is pretty much the perfect format for you guys to follow if you actually want to place in these opens level lobbies. However, something that you do need to understand is the simple fact that not everybody's games are going to go the exact same. For example, if you get eliminated on one of these games early, maybe you wait for a queue, maybe you wait for all the players to catch up to you with the points. Now, this can obviously depend on tournament from tournament. However, what I would personally recommend for you guys is that I would recommend for the first 5 games, you try not to wait, but once you get past the halfway point of the tournament, you guys can definitely wait for the lower players to catch up to you in terms of points, and then compete in an easier lobby and get a high kill game to catch up. One of the best ways to actually improve and to catch up to the really good players in these opens level lobbies is that you guys are able to actually wait in the middle of the tournament and then get a really bad lobby and then get a high kill game, ideally one which you will win, to catch up and boost your points by a large margin. That's generally how I'd recommend you guys compete in the opens level round. Let's go on to the semis. Now in semis, I'd recommend you try to play overall passive. Unless you're in a very low point lobby, which generally is still a pretty decent lobby, I'd recommend you try to play passive unless obviously you're a pro player, you have incredible WKEYing skills, or in general you're just not scared of fighting people. If you're a good fighter, that's pretty much the only reason that I'd recommend you guys try to not play passive and try to WKEY. If you're playing passive, I think generally the placement points are going to reward you far more than WKEYing will. Obviously, you can try to get eliminations in the end game. However, I think personally that it's going to be much more beneficial for you guys in order to actually play passive in these lobbies. And then, of course, the weekly finals are obviously the finals. This is where all the pros are going to be competing. This is where you're going to pretty much have a designated drop map, drop spot. Everything's going to be very, very focused. It's going to be a lobby of 50 duos, and that's going to be a whole different discussion for a different video. I'm not really going to cover that in today's video because generally if you're getting into the finals of these weekly tournaments, you're most likely going to be a semi or a professional player, which obviously the FNCS finals is not the first rodeo for you guys. But then the next really important factor of how to place and qualify for FNCS, this is going to be the point format. Now, I'd recommend you guys really pay attention to this because it's very important for you guys in how you structure your games and how you play throughout them. Obviously, before I went over a basic structure for the opens and the semis. However, this is something that you guys can change, and the best way to do so is you focus on the point format. So you need to remember that eliminations are worth 2 points, and you get 63 total placement points for a win. Now ideally placement is worth way more, so you are better off playing passive if you are not as confident in your WKEYing. Generally what I mean by this is that if you guys are not able to actually WKEY very well, you definitely need to prioritize placement. even if you are a WKEY, placement is still really beneficial. You pretty much need to get 30 kills in order to match the amount of placement you get for a win, and even then you're still short some. I think what's absolutely phenomenal about this format is that placement is going to be worth far more than kills, and I think that a lot of players are going to be prioritizing making the end games as stacked as possible. I think not only will this lead to a much better quality game, it'll also lead to a really good adaptation of the meta. Obviously, in this current meta, there aren't too many movement options. Obviously, there is going to be stuff like slap juice. Stuff like that will ideally help you try to run faster, it'll help you run longer, have sprinting ability, and rotation will obviously form around that. However, once again, it's really important that you guys, in these end games specifically, are focused on playing passive and rotating in the best way possible. Even when it's this stacked, I think that the point format is definitely going to come in handy, because you guys will be able to structure your game and structure how you rotate and how long you want to stay alive. I said this in my previous video, but ideally placing top 5 with 3 to 5 kills is the sweet spot for every single game. If you do that, you're pretty much going to qualify guaranteed. Now, the final section that I want to go over is going to be zone tracking. Now, as you guys know, with the release of Chapter 4, they did change the zones. And I know I've gone over this plenty of times, and I know that I've said multiple times that players have not adjusted to this new zone system, but truly, this is really the case still. A lot of players have really not adjusted to how to rotate out of their zones early, and they need to understand that looting, leaving your drop spot, and rotating in early zones needs to be happening earlier, while rotating in later zones can happen slightly later as long as you position correctly. Because the zones are going to be closing less and less, so there's going to be less movement that you really have to make. However, keep in mind, yes, the zones are moving faster, so generally the zone is literally going to be moving faster, so you need to literally outrun it or you need to position better. Now, the way I'd recommend you practice this, obviously, scrims is really important. However, generally, you guys can go into arena and then maybe just land a spot on the edge of the map, rather than landing at a place where you can WKEY a lot. Land on a spot at the edge of the map, and then you go ahead and try to rotate into the zone, and then get eliminations after that. I think this is going to be really beneficial for FNCS, especially if you're playing duos. But if you're playing ranked and you're trying to do this, I think what's going to be extremely important is the fact that you guys are able to do this in lobbies that are not as stacked. So in case you get a lobby that's not as stacked in FNCS, you can learn how to play it very easily. But guys, if you follow all of these tips, I genuinely think that it will increase your chances of qualifying for FNCS. Anyways, guys, that is the video on exactly how to qualify for FNCS. If you guys did enjoy, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel down below. I think FNCS is actually getting a lot better, especially with the no movement meta. Considering that a lot of this stuff is based off your actual character movement rather than using items to move around, I think generally it's going to be way more helpful and way more competitive than it is if you had movement items. Remember, you do need to play to the lobby and strategize exactly how you're spending your games. But that's about it for this video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.